Please.
Thanks everybody for coming, Senator Segerblum. Thank you. And anywhere where I can go and have tamales and talk politics, especially marijuana, I want to be there. So it's great. I very much appreciate the invite, and I want to acknowledge a lot of people here. But you know, I went to Berkeley undergrad, and you can imagine, having a group like Citizens for a Drug-Free Berkeley was sort of like having a group, the Coalition for a Wine-Free France. I understand what Tick is talking about in the hippie days and Nixon. Question 2 has nothing to do with hippies, Nixon, or the war on drugs. Let's be very clear. I would agree with Tick on a lot of the things. We don't want to be arresting people and giving them life sentences. Thankfully, we're not doing that anymore. The DA can tell us if they are. I highly doubt it. People are not in prison for smoking a joint. This isn't about hippies. This isn't even about an adult who wants to use pot. If you're an adult and you like marijuana, and maybe, like Tick, you have a strain of pot named after you, knock yourself out. I don't want you to drive on our roads, but on a Friday night, go to your house, fall asleep. I don't really care. That is not what question 2 is about. So we should be very, very clear. Question 2 is about one thing and one thing only. And it starts with an M, but it's not marijuana. It's money. And it's not money for the state either. In fact, I do have to correct something Tick said. The tax revenue for the school account, the distributive school account that you have that gets distributed, basically gets watered down to all the different districts, it's the 3rd recipient of this tax revenue, okay? And I'm still waiting for your, you have, obviously, you're known, as you mentioned, for casinos and revenue from gambling, so your school should be #1 in the country. How's that going? Are they #1 yet? They should be, because that's what we were promised. It's the same thing with marijuana. And so, question 2 is very, very simply about a small number of people getting rich. And you know who's gonna get rich? It's brilliant, I gotta say, the way they wrote it. I mean, I've never seen an initiative written like the one here in Nevada. Why? Because the people getting rich are gonna be the booze industry and the medical marijuana industry. Let me tell you what happened when this question 2 was written. The alcohol folks, the suits, not the hippies, by the way, at all. The guys in suits, the guys that look like me, with Ivy League MBAs, okay, who know how to make money, and let me tell you, they're not smoking marijuana either, because they have to go to work in the morning. They sat down with the medical marijuana folks and struck a deal. And they said, if this passes, we get first dibs in. If this passes, we get to advertise. You already have Dr. Reefer. I don't know how proud everyone is about that everyone comes here and sees all the pot billboards. You can't, try and take your kid off the strip, and yet you're on the freeway and you see pot leaves in your face all the time. They came together and said, we're gonna have advertising, we're gonna get to go to market first, and we're gonna be able to sell basically whatever we want. And what do I mean by whatever we want? It's not the joints from the Berkeley days. I mean, Tick and I probably saw many joints in our day in the Bay Area. It's not about joints. It's about candy. It's about cookies. It's about brightly colored lollipops. It's ice cream. It's sodas. And this sounds kind of a little like, whoa, it's sort of scare tactics. Folks, read the initiative. I invite everyone, read all 13 pages. If this was about adults wanting to smoke a joint, it should be 2 sentences. It should be, adults will not be in prison for smoking marijuana. Period. Done. Folks, it's not about that. It's about creating a scheme for rich people to get richer. And I just kind of have I have a hunch that money isn't exactly going to be going to the most needy areas. Where are your liquor stores here in the Las Vegas area? Are they in the upper class rich neighborhoods? Is that where they're concentrated? Of course not. There are 8 times as many liquor stores in poor Latino areas and Hispanic areas than there are in upper class white neighborhoods. And that's not a coincidence. The industry targets the most vulnerable. If you're an industry, you need people to be addicted. And actually, you know who your target customer is? None of you are the target. I hate to break it to you. Nobody here is important to the pot industry, except for one person. And it's little Eric over there with his headphones on watching cartoons. No, I'm not kidding. If you're in the industry, you're looking for the brains that are under 20 years old. What did the tobacco industry do for a century, folks? Think about big tobacco. We knew that tobacco was addictive. Do you know what year we knew tobacco caused lung cancer? Does anybody want to take an educated, now you can't because we already asked you that. Anybody want to take an educated guess about when we knew tobacco caused lung cancer?
The 1930s.
Very close, 1920s, very good guess. When did they acknowledge it? 2000. When did the government try and call them out on it for the first time? Surgeon General's report, many of you might remember, Joe Califano and LBJ, 1964. Folks, it took our government 40 years to admit this. It took the industry with basically a gun to their head 90 years to admit it. We're creating Big Tobacco 2.0. So it's not a surprise that guess who's funding the initiative here? Other than the local, booze industry that wants to get richer because alcohol's not enough. The out-of-state marijuana industry, the people making money in Colorado, the people from Washington, D.C., the Marijuana Policy Project and others. Well, absolutely they are. And so when you look at what this is about, I don't care if you're 40 years old and you want to smoke marijuana. Knock yourself out. I don't want you to drive on the roads, though, because stone driving is actually a very serious issue, and it is a very serious issue already in this state. You have a dubious distinction, I hate to say it, of your road safety. And many of you are nodding in agreement. I don't think I'm telling you something you don't know. So there's a reason why there's a very large group of people across this country and in this state, not people who want to tell you what to do. We're not Nancy Reagan Republicans. There's people like Patrick Kennedy, my colleague who founded SAM. He's the son of Ted Kennedy, the nephew of President Kennedy. He joined me to create this organization, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. There's a reason why we have almost every single neuroscientist who studied this issue on our board. Scientists who have said, I can't stand back and just publish articles from Harvard. I have to stand up and do what the doctors didn't do in the 1950s and warn people about this public health epidemic. Because folks, this is not the marijuana that, Tick might have indulged in the 1960s. We were talking about the 60s earlier. You mentioned it, not me. This isn't that marijuana. That was 2% THC. This is a marijuana that's been genetically bred, because you breed the THC plants. If you want to talk about botany later, we can. But there's ways to breed marijuana where you're breeding it to increase the THC. And by the way, you get rid of all the things that might help people with seizures or other things. You get rid of those things. CBD, the average marijuana joint has 0% CBD. You check what has been seized from DEA, 0%. Now you can get CBD at the medical marijuana stores, but the average joint that Eric will be dealt in 5 years in middle school doesn't even have any of that stuff that might be medicinal. So the issue is, folks, this is not about the marijuana of the 60s, and this isn't even about marijuana. This is about money. And so I ask you, don't take my word for it, and don't take Tick's word for it. Read the initiative yourself. See who gets to sell pot first. See who gets to advertise. And see what kind of products are allowed. All of these products, the candies and cookies, they're all allowed. Now, I don't want to arrest people for using marijuana. Tick and I would agree they shouldn't go to prison. Why don't you pass that law first? You're going from what you have now to basically the tobacco of our time. Why go to tobacco model or the alcohol model? And versus, take some, what's the rush really is the question. Take some intermediate steps. Yes, change that. We don't want people in prison for life for smoking marijuana. And I don't want a war on drugs. But what I do want is a health-oriented policy that is prevention, intervention, and treatment first. You're not making money of this here. By the way, now that I finish, in Colorado, please look at the statistics about how much money they've made. They're not building new schools with it, folks. They're paying the bureaucrats that are not even keeping track of the problems with the pot there. Do you know that they had 40 recalls last year of legal marijuana? Recall, you might think. Why would they recall it? Because there's pesticides, molds, bacteria. That's in legal marijuana. Hundreds of thousands of products recalled last year in a legal regime. And guess who's profiting in Colorado? The drug dealers. It's never been a better time to be a drug dealer because demand has risen. And if you want to go to Colorado to get marijuana, why would you pay 20% tax? Why in the world would you do that? You go to the dealer and you get it much cheaper now. They have undercut the price of the legal market. That's why there are all these issues right now with arresting. And there are now more Latino and Black kids being arrested for pot in Colorado this year than last year, according to the police statistics. Now, let me repeat myself. Fewer white kids being arrested and more Latino and black kids. Why? Because kids think it's legal. They're bringing it to school. They're using it in public. And I actually would like to take the question about smoking marijuana in public, because I heard that there was maybe a bill that was going to be presented to follow up with that. And I think we need to think about whether or not we want already our neighborhoods with the challenges that they have to now be neighborhoods where you're walking with your kid past the ice cream store and you're smelling marijuana because you can smoke it in public. Well, what if you live in an apartment complex with a patio that faces the playground? Well, now your kids are now exposed to secondhand smoke again. So, look, we need to reform drug laws, there's no doubt. We need a new kind of criminal justice system. We don't want to be throwing people in prison. But why in the world would you hand marijuana over to the guys who already are profiting off of addiction with the alcohol industry in this state? Why would you allow advertising, and why would you allow candies and kid-friendly products to be used? So I hope you do read the initiative and educate yourself and your neighbors, because it's a David and Goliath fight here. We're up against a lot of money and people who want to make a lot of money. They see Nevada as a huge market. And we have teachers, doctors, hospital associations, law enforcement, prevention, all the rich people on our side, right? And the volunteers. We need your help. And we need to spread this message that question 2 is about people getting rich. It's not about your right to smoke marijuana. Thank you so much.